It's March 26th, 2020, and this is No Sports Day 14. On what would have been opening day 2020 across Major League Baseball. Instead, the entire world continues to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, and rightfully so. I realize sports has a very important place in all of our lives, but our priorities right now are so much better suited on handling the real-life crisis at hand. That being said, what I want to discuss here in this episode, for one day, is baseball, and specifically how Major League Baseball might be able to utilize 3 different tricks they could have up their sleeve to pull off some sort of normal baseball season when the time is right. And the reason I want to bring all this up is because of specific developments and a report I read last night from USA Today and Bob Nightingale. I rarely read right off the screen here, but that's what I'm going to do. Major League Baseball and the Players Union are close to reaching an agreement on critical economic issues with hopes of salvaging the majority of a 162-game season, according to an MLB executive with knowledge of negotiations, even if it means playing the World Series in late November. How about that for just a second? The World Series and Thanksgiving all in one place? I think there's some allure to that. I definitely think so. The executive spoke to USA Today Sports on the condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the negotiations. The deal, which could be announced as early as Thursday, which is today, maybe by the time you're watching it's already out, when opening day was originally scheduled. It would include a commitment from MLB and the players to play close to a full regular season schedule as possible, providing the COVID-19 crisis dissipates and permits them to even start a season. And by the way, I think that is still a question for all of us, right? We're aiming this hope towards some kind of season. I think it should also come with the caution that nothing right now is a definite. Nothing right now is a definite. We move on. The two sides would like to play at least 100 games. By the way, I've said before, I think that's a nice milestone to shoot for. Scheduling regular season games through October and including weekly doubleheaders. They've also discussed the idea of expanding the current playoff format to help offset the loss of income while acknowledging that if cold weather becomes an issue in late November, and I guarantee it will in certain parts of the country, rain as well, they could move the World Series and playoff series from cold weather cities to a neutral site. That's a great idea. More on that in just a second. The biggest issue in negotiations has been service time, which is close to reaching a resolution for a truncated season. The two sides are near an agreement that if there's a season of any length, players would receive credit for a full year as if it was a regular 162-game season, a person with knowledge of the negotiations said. And I'm going to stop reading the article right there. There is just so much to go on, so much to build off right there, a lot of great points. And it is great to see that baseball is trying to lean and bend and flex in every direction to give you something normal down the road. Now, those 3 tricks I talked about before that could be up their sleeve. Number 1, if you want to get started as early as possible, let's be honest, there is the fact that you may have to play games with empty stadiums. I know that's going to look weird. I know that's going to feel different. The sights and sounds, watching a broadcast, even that will have a very noticeable effect, right? Like, you're not going to play this off as if it were normal. But if that's what it takes to get the game going again, to get entertainment going again in a safe and responsible fashion. Don't get me wrong. I don't want any of this to start prematurely. And I think with so much at stake, that's the last thing any professional sport would do is try and pull this off too early and jeopardize the most valuable part of the business, their players and other personnel. But I do think that one trick up their sleeve is to start these games and understand that fans aren't ready for that yet. Crowds are not ready to be back next to each other, but games could start in a responsible and healthy fashion. So that's one trick they have up their sleeve. Number 2 would be retooling the entire schedule so that travel is a lot lessened and diminished in a lot of cases for these teams. If you're trying to play that many games, let's say you only have 140 days, and that's optimistic, I think, to get a season in. Well, then you really need to figure out how to maximize all those off days that would have been and shorten the travel in between. Would it be okay to have your team maybe only make one West to East Coast trip in this season? Yeah, I think you'd have to do it that way. You'd have to really minimize those long days and long flights if you want to maximize as many games as possible. So I think there is an aspect of doability in that fashion, that they could get something done to minimize the travel. So that's a trick they have up their sleeve. And then the last but not least, in fact, the last but most important part of all this, you can't start a season that you're not going to be able to finish. And what's correct about weather in fact, even late October, it gets messy. You can't play baseball in all conditions, but you can do it if you're indoors. So how about this? For all these years, baseball has bashed domed stadiums, and I'm guilty of it too. You've probably said some derogatory things over time about all the turf fields and the atmospheres that just aren't right. But it's now these dome stadiums which could come in so handy to help us finish off a baseball season when the weather gets bad. I'm talking about Seattle, which has always been a great ballpark. I don't think that one's been criticized. Houston, the new one in Arlington, Milwaukee, Toronto, the old Sky Dome, and in Arizona where the Diamondbacks play. So there are, right there, oh, and I forgot Tampa. No offense, Devil Rays or Rays. 7 different domed stadiums right there that could be neutral sites. So you could work this out, and that would be weird too. But by playing neutral sites, you cut down on the travel time in between. You could play a best of 5 series in 5 days max without any issues of weather or delay. You could pull these games off as scheduled with no question about it. So there you go. Those are 3 things I think MLB could do to help this happen. Like I said before, there's no guarantees. I think shooting for 100 is a nice milestone. I also feel like it's very ambitious. At this point, here we are in late March with a whole lot of questions and not a lot of answers. This has really been like sports in a sense of all the news that comes out. It's an L, another L, another L. We're taking losses all over the place here in terms of lives, in terms of the economy, in terms of way of life. But wait until some of those W's happen. Hopefully we'll see all this different. We'll get a sense of motivation and that our efforts of weeks and months and the efforts of doctors and medical personnel and first responders and everybody who is doing the toughest jobs in the world right now. Hopefully all of that comes to a nice resolution that we did the best we could and we're on the other side of this. And again, when sports returns, I guarantee it's going to help us feel a lot more special. It's going to help us feel a lot more normal. I miss it. I know how much all of you miss it too. Again, I'm doing these videos to document the current time and space. That's not what this episode was about. I've got plenty of that next time around. In fact, one of the things I want to discuss, busy versus boredom. I'm hearing a lot of people say they're bored. I haven't been bored for one single second yet. I've been super busy with all this. And I'm imagining a lot of you who do way more important jobs and tasks than I do are feeling even more so. So thanks for watching this episode. Be safe, be well, and stay at home. This has been No Sports, Day 14.